In recent years, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has faced a criminal trial for corruption, and in 2021 was ousted as prime minister after a 12-year tenure. He has since returned to power, and late last year took the helm of a hardline right-wing government. To form a majority coalition, Netanyahu had to award top positions to fringe and ultra-religious candidates, some of which he once said he would never partner with. Among the cabinet's top priorities include a package of proposals to reform the country's judiciary, which it claimed had become too powerful and needed to be reined in.
There's two parts to it. One side is Netanyahu and the other side is the coalition partners. For Netanyahu, the belief is that he would like to overhaul the judiciary, as he is in this ongoing corruption trial, to somehow appoint the judges that might be overseeing his trial, or maybe something much more structural. On the other side of it are the coalition partners, which are the extremist settler activists and the ultra-Orthodox, which have said for many years that they don't believe the Supreme Court has the right to rule against their agenda. And their agenda is to get larger state benefits for their own projects, which for the ultra-Orthodox is to allow the men to stay in yeshivas and to study Torah instead of going to the army and instead of going into the workforce. And then for the settlers, it is to allow them to build and to get normalized and acknowledged officially as part of Israel.
Less than 2 weeks into office, Netanyahu's government began work to revamp the country's courts. On January 11th, it proposed a legislative package that included changes like ending judicial review, granting lawmakers the power to choose judges, and allowing the country's parliament, the Knesset, to vote down Supreme Court decisions. The move set off huge demonstrations and a general worker strike that threatened to paralyze the economy.
The right wing has long called for a rebalancing, and there are a lot of polls and understanding that the entire country would maybe be in favor of rebalancing, a kind of redefinition of the Supreme Court, being that it is so uniquely endowed with this role to check and balance the Knesset. But it's the way that it's being done. It feels that it's being forced, and it's as if it's changing the country without ever asking, half of the country what they think about it.
In a bid to stop the protests, Netanyahu paused the judicial overhaul. But months later, lawmakers resurrected one of its bills, the proposal to limit judicial review. The new legislation would remove the ability of the Supreme Court to strike down government decisions that it deemed unreasonable. On July 24th, Israel's parliament passed the proposal into law. Opponents of the reform argue it undermines Israeli democracy and its fragile checks and balances system.
It's a very, very small country. It's a country the size of New Jersey, and everyone lives very close to each other. So there are so many families that are just completely torn by what's going on. And now there's a fear that half of the country will, quote unquote, take it, and the other half will be just kind of forgotten. And it can't be overstated. It's very, very unprecedented, very historic.